Good morning, everyone. I had to get my glasses. Here is fine, here is not so good. Welcome. Today is Thursday, March 26th, and this is the opening of the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission for this date. Lori, take a roll.
Commissioner Curran,
Here.
Commissioner Doherty,
Here.
Commissioner Floyd,
Here.
Commissioner Japon Porter,
Here.
Commissioner Molinas,
Here.
Commissioner Chairman Raval.
Here. One of the things I want to say is welcome and thank you, everyone. We have very, very strong supporters, not only in this room, but throughout the country. Many of you and many of them have reached out to us to say that and to offer help. And we're accepting that help. We understand mistakes have been made. We are correcting those mistakes, and we will continue to move forward. So our hope is that with your help and a little patience, we will continue to be #1 in the country. Thank you. So we have an agenda here, and what I needed, the first thing is to the approval of the February 15th commission meeting.
Chair. I would vote to approve the February 15, 2023 commission meeting as presented.
Or
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Japon Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Molinas,
Yes.
Chair Raval.
yes. Next on the agenda, and we're going to just kind of move along, is the budget update. Are we ready?
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, I think we're ready. Colin's going to be virtual, so I've asked our CFO, Colin Nealand, to give him an overview of the governor's budget for the agency. It's our budget. So Colin, I hope our virtual, I hope our tech is working. Can you hear us and can you take it away?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Director Prinz, thank you. I appreciate that. And good morning, Commission. For the record, my name is Colin Nealand, and I am the Chief Financial Officer for the agency. I'll be sharing the presentation on the screen, but you should also have a printed copy of the presentation in front of each of you in case that's easier to follow along as we go this morning. So, and again, I thank you for your time as I go over this information, and of course be happy to answer any questions you have either as we go along or as we get to the end. So what I will be going over today is an overview of what was included in the agency's 2023 governor's budget, as well as doing a brief recap of where our budget has been for the current biennium. And so the first thing I wanted to share with you all is I know you're all very aware of the agency's vision, mission, and values. You know, really the most important information is actually at the bottom of this slide, where there is a link there for where the agency's budget information can be found. Currently, our 2023-25 agency request budget is located at this link, and this is information that anyone in the public can go and take a look at, and they can see the entirety of our budget document there. And we will also be uploading our 2023 governor's budget there as soon as we are through the review process with the folks that lead that effort at the Department of Administrative Services, and they review every agency's budget information at each stage as we go through the budget process. And later on, as we exit the 2023 legislative session, we'll be uploading our 2023-25 legislatively adopted budget at this link as well. And the other thing I want to share with you all, I believe Nicole Pexton may be talking later today, but the agency is also going through an effort at the executive team and also with our new internal auditors' help to take a look at how can we establish metrics or use metrics that we already have to continue to be focused on outcomes that really tie into the agency's mission, vision, and values. So that's another reason I wanted to share that information with you today, just for your ease of reference. And so I wanted to start the overview today just by taking a quick look at where we have been in the current biennium for 2021-23. which what that indicates is these are the primary revenue sources for the agency. As I know you're well aware, our revenue estimates have been that we would be receiving $1.7 billion in revenues, and you can see the primary source of that is about 1.6 million in distilled spirits. And then over on the right, of course, our privilege tax on beer and wine is just under 40 million, our liquor license fees at about 17.6 million, and marijuana license fees at 27 million. And as we come back and present in future times to the commission, I'll be providing updates on how the agency trended from our revenue estimates to actuals as we continue to go and get through the end of the biennium. The other thing I wanted to share with you is this is our current biennium legislatively approved budget. And you can see here that this is $476 million of other funds. And the thing I really wanted to kind of call your attention to is a couple of items. The big red slice down near the bottom of the screen or the bottom of the page that you're looking at, that reflects the majority of the capital construction projects. That's our warehouse, our headquarters, the conveyor system that will go into the new warehouse. That's what you see reflected here in this red slice. And these are items that were approved both in the 2021 and the 2022 legislative sessions. And because the funding related to the warehouse and the conveyor was approved with 6-year spending authority, those items are automatically part of our base budget as we go forward. And so you will not see that as part of our overall budget. When we look at the governor's recommended budget for the 2023-25 biennium, it doesn't mean they were not included in the governor's budget. It just meant that because there was 6-year spending authority associated with that, that it was already carrying forward. And then we also have our $27 million IT improvement capital project. That is actually embedded within our distilled spirits division. And so that is something that was actually, even though that is very much part of those capital projects for the warehouse and the conveyor, when that was approved in this biennium, that was approved with 2-year spending authority. So one of the policy option packages I'll be talking about a little bit later that was recommended in the governor's budget is a continuation of the spending authority that we need to continue moving forward with that aspect of our capital projects. And then I wanted to share with you, of course, OLCC is the 3rd largest revenue generator for the state, and our projection for what we distribute to the general fund, cities, counties, the Oregon Wine Board, and of course, mental health. It was over $600 million, more than half of that going to the state general fund. And so this, of course, is something we'll be continuing to track, and I'll be reporting back on what the actuals were by the end of the biennium. And I can provide an update on this at the next commission meeting as well, just to let everyone kind of know how we are trending. And then I wanted to then transition now into, as we look forward into 2023-25, what were the items that were included in the governor's budget and what are the projections that we are currently looking at now. And so what you see here is we're projecting an overall revenue estimate of $2.1 billion for the 23-25 biennium. You can see that our distilled spirits, where we're going in the current biennium from about 1.7 billion for this 2-year period to actually almost $2 billion in the next biennium. That represents a 20% increase overall from this biennium to the next. And then, of course, you can see what we're also estimating for our other primary revenue sources. So this is going to be something that we'll be continuing to evaluate and look at as we update our revenue forecasts every 3 months, because historically revenue has increased by about 5% a year or 10% a biennium. Right now, the modeling tools that the agency has historically used indicate that we're going to actually be looking at a larger increase in the next biennium. So that'll be something we'll continue to report back and keep an eye on. And something just to note for the commission is there were 2 items included in the governor's budget, and they're included in the header on this slide. One was an additional 50-cent per bottle surcharge, which was estimated to provide an additional $45 million in revenue to the state general fund. And then also an expansion of stores and home delivery, 10 stores in total, and then an expansion of home delivery. And at the gross level, that was also estimated to include or provide an additional $38 million. Those items are not reflected in this pie chart. So I just wanted to note that for you. So the amounts in this pie chart would go up if those end up being ultimately part of the agency's legislatively adopted budget and the work we do with all of you. I wanted to touch briefly on the policy option packages that were included in the governor's budget. And so starting with the agencies, and this is kind of just budget speak when it talks about the modified current service level, that's essentially our base budget with some adjustments that we're looking at, such as the $18 million additional spending authority that we had received from the September 2022 e-board related to increases in bank card costs and agent compensation and distillery agent compensation. And then you can see here that there were some reductions to costs that we're expecting to pay in DOJ fees or Department of Administrative Services charges. These are very typical type of charges that all agencies pay, and it's very normal for those to go through an adjustment downward between the agency request to the governor's budget and sometimes even into the legislatively adopted budget as we work our way through at the enterprise level through the budget process. And then the very first policy option package you see there are the IT modernization bonded costs at $16.7 million. This is what I was referring to earlier about the amount of funding that we will be looking to carry forward out of the $27 million that was originally approved in the current biennium for that project. We're currently continuing to work with the DAS Chief Financial Office and the Legislative Fiscal Office because we know that there'll be some adjustments to this amount that will likely need to go up, because ultimately what we're looking for is of the $27 million that we did not spend in the current biennium, how much of that needs to carry forward into the next. And so there's just ongoing work that we'll be doing there. And in policy option package 102, we have additional costs related to moving and warehouse equipment and other non-bondable IT costs. Those were at $14.4 million. This assumes that we would be moving before the end of June 2025. That's something that we're continuing to evaluate as we continue to work at our warehouse project and see, will that actually occur, or will it be more likely that we would move in July, August, first part of 2025, which would really be the start of the biennium of 2025-27, the biennium after the one we're currently working on in the 2023-25 governor's budget and then legislatively adopted process. So more work continuing on that front. And then you can see recommendations that were in the governor's budget relating to adding 2 positions to our IT department, replacing vehicles that would be cannabis, marijuana funded from to continue to replace vehicles that are aging out in our fleet. And then investments in financial services and our alcohol licensing staff, as well as marijuana-funded cannabis communication outreach, trying to make some investments in our ability to be responsive to public records requests and communications. And then, of course, working on these last 2 with working with the partners that are out there with the private labs, and then also working through these items. The last item you see there with the Oregon Department of Agriculture with the lab that they're building, where we'd be transferring $2.3 million of revenue over to them to help build out that lab, provide the equipment and the staff we would need to do staffing there. And then, of course, policy option package 215 that I had skipped over a little bit. This is the alcohol delivery regulation policy option package. This is related to home delivery. And so this was the amount of staff that we were looking at that we would need to be able to effectively oversee that program. And so in total, the governor's budget was a great budget for the agency. Very much appreciated the support for Governor Kotek or from Governor Kotek. And you can see about $35 million in recommended policy option packages and an increase about 17 positions. So in total, that brought our governor's recommended budget to just under $400 million of other funds and just under 400 positions, which is what you see here. And again, you don't see those capital construction projects on this pie chart like we saw earlier. And again, that's because those were already approved for 6 years. So that's why you don't see that reflected here. And then lastly, yes.
Okay, break here. I like to ask the commissioners if they have questions about, particularly go back one more slide. Governor, number 7. Page 7. Yeah. I'd like to, if any of the commissioners have questions about what you see here. Yes.
Chair, the cannabis communications outreach, do you have any background on that? What that would be?
That would be something that the agency would be working on to look at potentially either establishing contracts or making investments so that really that's about trying to be forward facing and trying to really reach out to the stakeholders and the public around Oregon, help communicate about what OLCC is all about, what we're doing, those types of things, trying to be proactive in that sense, because often people around Oregon, everyone has busy lives and those types of things, and there can be just a lack of understanding around what is the agency up to, how are we using agency resources, all of those kinds of things. So it's really trying to be proactive in that communications focus. And this particular, because this would be using marijuana revenues, this would obviously be focused on marijuana related communications.
Yeah, I think it's excellent, and it's really vital, because I think there is a misunderstanding of what's done here, and so that's great. On the cannabis side, it might be, yeah, it's excellent. So thank you.
Chair,
Absolutely.
Commissioner?
I got a quick question for you, Colin. Where you had mentioned credit card and merchant fees, does that remind me, do agents pay that, absorb that expense, or is that something the state picks up? Do you know?
I will, that is something currently that the state picks up. There is a bill that is going through the session. I'll have to double check. I want to say it's Senate Bill 538, but I'll have to double check myself on that. And that legislation includes language that agencies may look to pass that cost along. And that's something that if that bill ends up becoming law during this legislative session, that's something that we'll need to come back and engage in future conversations with the commission about what the commission might want to do with that and what the impacts might look like.
What line item is that? Can you, I want to see what that number is. Out of the.
Yes. Yeah, I can definitely provide some additional detail afterwards, where I can send that information to you so you can see what that would look like. And in general, right now, bank card fees, which include both credit cards and debit cards, that the transaction cost for that is about 1.7%. So we would be looking at a situation where the average bottle price right now is a little under $21. That I believe it's like $20.95. That if we added 1.7% to that, that would change that price to about $21.30. So just to kind of give you a sense of what that might look like. And then I can give you some additional information, because it's a significant cost to the agency at this point in time.
So Callan, we're going to have an update, a legislative update, and Rosie is going to be talking to us about that, so she can give more information about how that works.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And I just wanted, with Colin on, Colin, you got a head nod from Ms. Shatkin that is the bill, Senate Bill 538. So I just wanted to congratulate you. And Ms. Shatkin's here, she can confirm that. And Commissioner Floyd, this came up in our in one of the hearings that the chair and I went to, the card fees are a critical thing that are being discussed by the legislature. And I also wanted to hit Commissioner Melitus's question about the cannabis communication outreach. That is exactly what I think you were alluding to. It's about consumer protection. If there's recalls, making sure citizens know that that's our place in that emerging industry. And so we want to have that communicated, because it's still, people are still learning about our place in that industry as compared to the distilled spirits.
Excellent.
Great, thank you.
May I
Sure.
ask?
Commissioner?
I don't know if this is part of it, but with a question that seemed pertinent, relative, is where would House Bill 3312 fit into this pie right here?
Let's see. I have to turn.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Which
Rosie.
House bill was that?
Rosie's
But-
smiling.
The Alcohol Harm Reduction Act.
Well,
Kelly, you want Rosie to take that when she
Yeah.
comes up?
We'll have her get that.
Okay.
Chair, Colin, thank you. I noticed here we've got the IT modernization costs, bonded cost of about 16 million. And then we've got an additional risk mitigation with the IT of 496,000. Can you tell me what that is?
Yes, so I'll go to that slide just so you can see that, as well as have it in front of you if you have your paper copy there. So those were two positions that we had requested for our IT section to be able to expand the authorized staffing that we have within that section, to be able to address the issues that we see as ongoing for the agency relating to improving IT security and just having the staffing that are able to do those types of things, to be able to do those in a proactive basis. And I know our IT department had worked also with the Department of Administrative Services in helping to identify those needs, and they were aware of what we were requesting and ultimately supportive of that.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Other questions? Can I have one? When we first, we as an organization brought in medical under one of our wings, we loaned money out. Sounds like it was about $2 million back in the day, but we got it back. That was part of the deal. So ODA, you were going to transfer another 2.3 million to ODA to help with their lab. Can you explain that a little more? And do we get the money back?
So the first question of would we get the money back? No, we would not get the money back, in the sense that we would be providing that money to ODA to pay for the positions for the work that they would be doing and purchase the equipment for doing marijuana lab testing using a state lab, because there's been an identified need, in addition to sometimes using private labs, to also having the ability to take a look at if there's a product that needs to be tested or something like that, having the state have those resources. And so there is a location in Wilsonville that has been an enterprise effort by the state that began a few years ago, where they're looking to have various agencies be located there, and labs and those types of things. And so this is a joint partnership that we've been working on with agriculture, so they would be able to provide that service for us. But because they would be incurring those costs, we would not get the money back directly, but we would be receiving a service and a benefit from the money that we would be transferring to them.
And who would have control over that location? ODA, Department of,
ODA will have control over their employees and the work that they're performing at the lab. It is actually a site that will, because it's a state facility, it will be owned by the Oregon Department of Administrative Services. And so they'll be the ones that'll be handling all the administrative functions and the facility maintenance and all those kinds of things at the site. And they've been handling the build out. It was actually a former Microsoft facility that the state purchased a few years ago.
Would we then have ongoing budget requirements for it?
We will, and that'll be one of the things we'll be continuing to evaluate with the Oregon Department of Agriculture is what those will look like, and those still need to be determined as we work through that, because of course that 2.3 million includes some initial capital investments and those types of things, but we would expect obviously that would not be repeated every single biennium.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And just to circle back to one of the questions regarding, kind of to have some additional information around bank card fees, in what we are currently looking at in this biennium for bank card fees is we're looking at about 20.5 million in bank card fees that we're incurring in the current biennium. So just to provide some of that additional detail.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead, Commissioner.
I did have one question. When I'm looking at 410, the cannabis communication outreach, is there going to be something similar for the alcohol part of the commission that will get some of that, some communication and outreach? I think that might be needed.
Yeah.
Question.
And I don't know, this is not the full budget, but I didn't know if that was something that could be part of it.
And so that was something that the agency had included in the agency request budget, but that was it was not part of the governor's 2023-25 budget.
That's a great question.
And Mr. Chair, I was gonna, if I can, the lab is gonna be part of the discussion of one of the bills that came from the task force, the marijuana task force. And my understanding right now from Ms. Shatkin and Mr. Ricks is we're having to do private lab testing.
Mhm.
So in the long run, this will save money to have a testing system that we would partner with the Department of Agriculture on. And I think Rosie and Nathan can flesh that out with you when we talk about because you can see it says LC there. Now we have a bill that would be related to the POP 413. So they'll be able to speak to that.
I bring it up because Matt and I asked for our own private lab 10 years ago.
Yeah. We've been having this conversation for a while, but it's finally getting traction. So this is a very good thing. Okay.
Perfect.
Commissioner Floyd? No.
No, I just want to, I think Commissioner Kern's right on. I think that's a great question. It's aligned with our mission to support businesses, public safety, community livability through education, right? And, we've been talking about, a long time, we've been talking about a verification of compliance program for the alcohol side. We have one for the marijuana side. We need one for the alcohol side of things too. So
Yeah,
I appreciate
particularly
that question.
because we have a lot of new businesses, a lot of new liquor agents that we've worked on expansion in the last few years. And I think we owe it to them to support them and continue, to move forward in the alcohol industry. So.
Absolutely.
So Director, I think what we're looking at is that over the last 3 years, we've kind of stepped away from some of that education and training. And with expansion, just like we have new commissioners, we have new licensees, we have new people in the industry. And we need to take a look at how we can put that back in the budget.
Yep.
Because it's vitally important for community safety, public safety, and what we do. Please continue.
So, and thank you for those questions. I really appreciate that, and happy to answer any others that might come up later on, or and we can definitely respond to those through email or anything if you have any other questions that you see later on. But I wanted to share with you again what we were really happy to see just so much support from Governor Kotek in our 2023-25 governor's budget. And you see this here in almost a 400 million other funds budget. You can see how this breaks down from what we're looking at in our different divisions. And then ultimately, this gives you another view of just kind of seeing over time how our authorized positions have changed from our 2019-21 legislatively approved budget to our 2023-25 governor's budget. So to the place where we are now with almost 400 authorized positions. And of course, we're continuing to move forward in the legislative conversations that we have as we answer any questions that the legislature might have around the governor's budget. And we'll also be presenting to the subcommittee for Ways and Means for our agency during the first week of April, and presenting on the governor's budget to them and answering any questions that they might have. And that concludes my presentation today, unless there are any other questions.
Commissioners? Talk to me a little bit about medical marijuana. That's not here.
So, Chair Laval, what we have been seeing on the medical marijuana side, as far as the number of licensees, is that we have not been seeing the growth that we've been seeing on the recreational side. And so we have actually been holding positions vacant in the medical marijuana program because we have not had a need to fill those positions like we have had in other areas. And so that is a program that, of course, we are continuing to support and do all the work that we're doing there and have historically done. But it's also an area that we're really sort of monitoring and evaluating as it continues to kind of move forward and see whether or not that growth would come back or whether it would continue to be where it is right now, which is more flat or potentially even go down in the future. And depending upon where, that demand for support goes, then we would, look to respond appropriately. But right now we're just not seeing a lot of activity like we are on the recreational side.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Mr. Director, questions?
So just to, I want to thank Colin for this overview. Just to let you know, this has been a big focus for me, for you, to carry through and keep this budget on the tracks. So, the timing is critical. And Colin had said the chance where we really get to do an overview and have the formal check-in with the legislature is April 4th, that first week of April. But we're meeting, I want to let you know, I've been meeting in Salem with key legislators, making sure that they understand our budget, make sure they understand the need for the warehouse, why there's a compelling need for that, and the IT costs. So I just want to let you know that this has been, when I said a month ago, keeping things on the tracks and working through some of the setbacks we've had, this is my focus right now in the short term, so that we can be poised and communicating to those key legislators that ultimately will be adopting a budget for this agency with all of the changes in the industries and the changes that we see. And so I want to thank the staff that have been able to pick up this work and give it to me and help me to communicate your needs and the industry's needs to those key legislators.
Thank you. One of the things I want to bring is that, the director and I have had conversations with stakeholders, and they were very interested and very pleased with the fact that the organization is moving forward and staying on track, not only for the IT, which was brought up yesterday, but also for the warehouse, because they understand the business opportunities and the needs. They want to support that and support us in every way in these two endeavors that we're looking at, the two major ones that we're looking at. So we're on track. Our partners are happy about it. They told us that point blank. They see what the future looks like, and they agree with our direction. So just let you know. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Have a great rest of your morning.
Thanks, Colin.
Okay, Jeff.
As Jeff's coming up and getting settled, I just want to, so a key, is the warehouse bonding, the borrowing for the warehouse was approved in this biennium. But it's just such a key part of our future, and I wanted to have Jeff overview where we are on that process. So go ahead, Jeff. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Raval, Commissioners, and Director Prinz. Just a brief update on the warehouse and where we're at. We're still in schematic design, so we told you that before. So that's where the architect has heard our call programming, heard from us what we need in this new building in the warehouse and also in headquarters. And they have worked through that architecturally. And now I'm pleased to tell you that we had an RFP for a construction manager as construction manager as general contractor, term CMGC. So DAS helped us with this process to put a request for proposal out on the street, public. And then we had 3 construction firms propose to bid on this project. And we went through an extensive process with DAS and DOJ review to pick one. And I'm happy that on Tuesday, we did an intent to award to the firm J.E. Dunn Construction. They're out of Beaverton.
What's the name of it? I'm sorry.
J.E. Dunn.
Thank you.
D-U-N-N with the last name. And we're really looking forward to working with them. So we'll be in the contracting phase with them to develop this contract. And then what their job will be for us, obviously, is going to be the construction, but they're going to have an integral part in our review of the architect work and making sure that what the architect is proposing for us actually makes sense in a construction phase, and also that what's proposed is going to be the right way to tackle something. The construction firm J. Dunn will bring in their knowledge of building and constructability and process and help us. And they might have another way of tackling an issue that'll save OLCC a fair bit of money. So that'll be great to get them on board. They're going to come in right now at the end of schematic design, and then they'll work through, we'll move into design development, and they'll be that integral partner with us. And I'm excited to have that going on and us moving forward. And then we're still scheduled to, about the middle of 2025 for completion date. But as we learn more, we'll be able to refine that timeline. I have further relative to the update, but just any questions on
So
this piece.
is J.D. Dunn is responsible for the entire project, or are they managing it for us and hiring all the subs? Give me the structure of that if you could.
Sure. So J.E. Dunn is a construction firm, and they're going to hire subcontractors. So they're going to have a pre-construction phase where they're going to help work with the architects, OLCC, and then our project management firm that we've hired, Cumming Group. And so all of us together are going to develop, move forward into design, and then into construction documents, the blueprints and constructability. But J.E. Dunn will do the work, and they'll obviously hire a bunch of subcontractors as well.
And do we have an owner's rep, or how do we handle that, monitor them?
Yes, so the owner's rep is Cumming Group that we've hired.
Okay, I got you.
And so they're our representative, and they're doing a great job right now.
Great.
And we work
What's the
well with
name
them.
again?
The name of
The owner's rep?
Cumming Group, it was Inici, I-N-I-C-I,
Okay,
but they've changed their name to Cumming Group.
okay. Thank you, appreciate it.
When they're contracting, one of the issues we ran into was we were following the state process, which is important for transparency. But I know some of the legislators had concerns with the need to be so transparent that it caused the price to increase on the land. Is there going to be any thought towards when we're going out for contracts, or when essentially our reps are going out for contracts, any way to sort of mitigate that? Because if we're delegating to them to a certain degree, maybe there is a way to be transparent, but not show our hand like we had to do with the land acquisition process.
Commissioner, maximum price on this project, which in the RFP, we had a maximum listed that they wouldn't be able to go over the GMP called guaranteed maximum price of 99 million. And so then there's a lot, they have to build this GMP and do so and provide information to us in design development. So over the next few months, they'll be building their budget relative to how this is going to work, and everything goes into play, like timing of moving dirt on our property. You know, and if it's in the wet, it could cost more money. So just all these things. But to answer your question, there is a very well-defined process. And if we can't come to agreement, then part of the process is we could not continue with them and move to someone else.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I think that's going to be important to be mindful of, because this is a great project, but I don't, if there's any way to mitigate some of the issues that happened on the land acquisition, I just want to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
So
Very well understood.
Mr. Chair, I think Commissioner Melissa is referring to, you know, great education for me was the January subcommittee. You know, we are in a difficult negotiating position when we are saying, hi, we're the state and we want to buy this property. It tends to make the price go up. You know, Commissioner, I think that's the process right now. I'll look to see, you know, what we can. It does put us in a difficult, you know, I think the land sale showed it puts us in a difficult negotiating position, but that's the policy. And I understand the policy. So we'll see how we can do that. And I wanted to let the commission know I am not a construction expert. I have the soft hands of a state bureaucrat. But that being said, I have done, when I worked at the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training, the Police Academy, DPSST, I was part of the planning and the move of DPSST from Western Oregon University to a campus on Almsville Highway down in Salem. And so, just a key part of this is what we refer to as value engineering. And that's where you say to the architect and the schematic design, this is beautiful, but we can't afford it. And so that's a key part of any construction project. And it's definitely a key part of a state project. And you have my commitment that'll be part of this process. We don't want to be penny wise, pound foolish, but we want to test that schematic design and make sure that we're doing something that we're counting all the costs for the citizens, and that we understand, it's an environment where anyone who's doing construction, I think, state or otherwise, it's a really challenging environment to get costs in, and it's a challenging environment for the general contractor to give us a maximum price that they know they can fulfill. And so I want you to know that commitment that we have is we'll be doing that testing and value engineering, and that definitely is built into the process that Mr. Samuels alluded to.
yeah, I just want people to know we're taking it seriously.
Absolutely.
It's important to get on the record. So I'm glad you guys are doing that. So.
Absolutely, very well understood.
Commissioner?
Well, Chair, are you able to share comparable jobs that J.E. Dunn has accomplish?
I can do that. I couldn't write it this moment, but they have provided that to us. And so we can certainly do that.
There's one I can think of in the city of Salem. Isn't that right, Jeff?
That is true. They did this, City of Salem, the police department.
For those of us who are from Salem, they completed the new police department probably a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Correct.
So that's a significant project I know they've done. If you're in Salem, you can see it's, it was needed. There's some similarities. The city of Salem's police department was in the city hall building for decades, not unlike our warehouse that's been there for decades. There was a need for a new department building. So I know that one, and I'm sure Jeff can give you other builds they've done. I don't know if anyone else has any that they can think of.
Thank you. Commissioners? Craig, I always love it when someone refers to, BPSST, because back in the day, it only had 3 digits, and that was me.
We added some digits, Mr. Chair, since you went through there. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So if I could continue just a little bit more of an update on the warehouse and the relocation project, we have our property across the creek here, as you all know, and Clackamas County has their rehabilitation and corrections facility there. And we're still working through that process. So just more of the update that's related. We have a draft written agreement that DOJ is assisting us with, working directly with the county and OLCC. And we're just about to put that to pen and have a written document. So far we've had all verbal, and they're paying for all the fees relative to the partition to transfer that property. And then we would have this written agreement would formalize it and say that they would, again, pay those fees, pay our DOJ fees related to this work on the partition, and that we would have a reversion clause in there. So if they ever sold the property or they had other uses for the property that weren't in the agreement, then they would have to provide us the fair market value of the state or OLCC, the fair market value for the property at that time.
Is there someone familiar with that process and where the building is located? So give a little background.
Sure. Just if when you leave today, if you just look at just to the west of us here, just behind yourselves, there's 2 buildings that Clackamas County has. We've had a long-term lease with them, a sublease, and then a direct lease where OLCC owns the property. It's about 2.66 acres. And a long time ago, it was approved that they pay for and put those buildings on there. So they own the buildings and we own the land. It's been a unique lease for $1 a year. And that's been going on for 43 years, over 43 years with Clackamas County. So we've had this long-term lease. It provides, what they do there on the site is that people that have drug and alcohol offenses, instead of them going to jail, they could enroll, but they could be part of this program and have some rehabilitation. So it provides benefit to, the city, county, and the state to have those people go through there versus being incarcerated. And so it's been a great partnership. There's lots of support for this partition, and that's it in a nutshell. So that they would take that side. And what that would do for OLCC is that, eventually we're gonna move out of this building into the new warehouse and headquarters that we're building down there in Canby, and we'll be looking to probably sell this property and also Millport Warehouse just up the street. And to not have that small section of land, and more than 50% of it is encumbered by floodplain and habitat setbacks because of the creek. It's really not, it's not very marketable property, but when we go to sell this property on this side of the creek, we won't have to have some kind of a long-term lease, the new owner buying land, but not owning the buildings. It just makes a lot of sense. And so our current lease agreement with the county goes through February of 2025 to provide the time to have this done. We have just recently, Department of State Lands provided us the approval that we could transfer the mineral and geothermal rights. We don't believe there is any in there, but it's in the urban growth boundary, and it's a process that we had to do. And so that's been approved. So really, we're just waiting to finalize the survey work that the county is providing, just to make sure we've got everything documented, and then do the partition with the city of Milwaukee and planning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I got a quick question. This is just kind of off the cusp, and I probably should have asked it a while ago. Do we ever look at, in the construction of this warehouse, do we ever look at like a percentage of either the construction subcontractors performed by DBE Enterprises, WBE Enterprises? Do we look at that? Is that a clause?
It is, it's
Okay.
COVID. I'm trying to think of the acronym for it, but it's basically to allow small businesses and minorities and women firms the ability to contract on this project. So that's written into this agreement.
Okay, what do we know what the percentage is of?
I wish I had that just off the top of my head, and I don't, but it definitely is, it is part of it, and J.E. Dunn will have to contract with and meet
Will you
the
give
COVID
that-
goals for the
Give
state.
that to me if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Will do, for
Okay,
sure.
thank you.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Boyd, yeah, we don't have the percentage, but this is this is the good side of the process. This is why we do it the way we do it. So Jeff and I'll get you the percentages, but this is the overarching policy goal is to have opportunity.
Perfect, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Along with that, this will be one of the newest bills after Governor's executive order, Governor Brown's executive order for like green energy, and we're also doing the 1% for art. And there's a lot of different requirements on this property so that we meet everything, to include COVID.
Okay.
It'll be a great project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Nicole.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
PowerPoint we're getting pulled up here. But thank you, commissioners, for having me speak today. For the record, I'm Nicole Pexton. I'm the Chief Audit Executive here at OLCC. And I'm here today to brief you on recent Secretary of State audit recommendations. Next slide, please. Yeah. It will include recommendations and management responses from 2018 to 2022. So feel free to interrupt me along the way if you have any questions. I'm still relatively new, so I may not have all of the answers, but I can definitely note them and either follow up or direct you to the appropriate staff. So what I'm going to cover today, it includes 2 performance audits, 1 IT audit follow-up report, and 3 financial audits from that time period. I also wanted to be clear on what I'm not covering, and I think Colin alluded to an internal audit that I've completed. So this is just external audits that I'm focusing on today. And it doesn't include any internal follow-up on whether those recommendations have been implemented. I'm just going to report the recommendations to you. And it also doesn't include any information from audits in progress because they're considered confidential until release. So next slide, please. First off, I wanted to provide some definitions just to make sure everyone's on the same page. Performance audits are likely what comes to mind when you think of a Secretary of State audit. They identify improvements an agency or program can apply to better achieve its mission. IT audits are considered a subset of performance audits, and they're designed to determine whether computer systems adequately protect public funds and information and whether they operate as intended. And then finally, financial audits express an opinion as to whether financial statements are presented accurately in accordance with accounting principles. And what I'm going to discuss today is that Secretary of State conducts these financial audits every year, And if they find any significant findings, those are summarized in a report every year called the statewide single audit. So we have a few of those. In a few of recent years, we've had some of those significant findings. So that's what I'm going to discuss. Next slide, please. We'll start off with the performance audits. There have been 2 in recent years. One that was focused on the bottle bill, and it was released in January of 2020. And the second was focused on marijuana diversion risk and laboratory testing, which I know is a theme that's come up in our budget and our legislative agenda. And that was released in January of 2019. Next slide, please. So just to give you an overview of how this is going to flow, I'll first present the high-level findings of the audit and then detail the recommendations and the management response to those recommendations. So this first audit on the bottle bill, their findings included that unredeemed bottle deposits can really add up to significant amounts. And so they suggested that collecting more deposits would help fund the programs that Bottle Bill was designed to support, so environmental and recycling programs. And the audit included a variety of ways that more deposits could be collected, such as using unclaimed property laws to claim unredeemed deposits for state use, expanding the bottle bill to include wine and liquor bottles, and changing the incentives to increase the redemption rates. They also found that more could be done to increase accessibility and convenience of redemption. As you probably know, there's some challenges around those redemption centers, and they're not always operated easily, and so people can access them. And then another challenge is that fraudulent redemptions are a substantial threat to the program, mostly coming from Washington State, from beverages purchased in Washington, but then redeemed for deposits in Oregon. Next slide, please. So there were 2 overarching recommendations here. There's a lot of subparts to that second one, so I'll kind of speak to it at a high level. The first recommendation was to work with entities under regulatory authority to ensure they are complying with existing unclaimed property laws. And the second was to consider crafting legislation that does one or more of the following. Subpoints A through D reference those ways of collecting more unredeemed deposits. Subpoint E talks about allowing OLCC to kind of better understand the financial details of entities under regulation of the bottle bill, so they know what it takes to operate these programs, what their financial needs are. Another financial transparency kind of subpoint here is F, where they recommended that consumers be entitled to a detailed accounting of return containers, because depending on what method you use, you might not know, like if you use one of the green bags, you might not know how many containers were in that bag, so you might not get a precise accounting of your deposits. And then finally, to consider working with the state of Washington to reduce fraud and improve environmental outcomes. So next slide, please.
How would you work with the state of Washington?
I think there was kind of a vague recommendation that, well, I'll get to, but establishing a partnership, maybe encouraging Washington to develop its own bottle bill, so there's less of an incentive to take the beverages over the state line. Yeah. So yeah, the management agreed with both of those recommendations, but because both involved legislation, the target date was a little difficult to pin down. It was to be directed by the governor. But yes, the management agreed with both. So any questions about that audit before we move on to the next one?
Nicole, how much money were we talking about redeeming if we do all of this? What's the?
They had, I probably have to confirm, exact figures with you, but in the audit, I believe they had an estimate from like 2016 to 2019. It was like $30 million a year, something like that. But, I'm not sure which methods Secretary of State used to
I won't hold
estimate
you
that.
to the number, but
Yeah,
It's a lot of bottles.
that's a lot of, that's
yeah.
a lot of money that we're right here.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions? No? All right, next slide. So this one was on marijuana diversion risk. And I wanted to note that This applied to both OLCC and the Oregon Health Authority. So some of the findings and recommendations apply more to the Oregon Health Authority than OLCC. I'll give you the high level summary here. First finding was that staffing and inspections had not kept pace with the number of marijuana licensees, and I doubt that comes as a surprise to you. The Oregon Health Authority lacks authority to put controls in place to prevent diversion of medical marijuana. Medical marijuana and the risks around it was definitely a focus in this report. Similarly, the next finding was that medical marijuana, most medical marijuana at least, is not required to be tested for pesticides and solvents, which could pose a risk to consumers. And then finally, this is very relevant with what's going on in the legislature right now, but without a mechanism for verifying lab results, Oregon's marijuana testing program cannot ensure that results are reliable and products are safe.
I think that's horrible for the medical.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as, Colin and Director Prince have, talked about, it's medical marijuana is kind of decreasing in size. So I think more folks are just purchasing marijuana through the recreational side, but not an expert on that. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So there were 23 total recommendations, but only 8 of them applied directly to OLCC. So those are the ones I'm going to cover here. Then there were kind of 2 different buckets. The first one was about preventing diversion of marijuana to the black market. So they recommended that OLCC should continue to improve data controls within Metric, continue to develop baselines, dashboards, and other data monitoring practices, establish inspection frequency goals and metrics and determine how many inspectors are needed to meet those goals. And finally, to work with the legislature to review licensing fees for marijuana businesses. And, if more money is needed, consider adjusting them to support capacity building for the marijuana program.
I was just going to make a comment because that was released 2018 or
2019.
2019, January 2019, real early. And we were, it's a pretty different time now than 2017, because these audits take a long time. And when I first joined, we had a high intensity drug trafficking report that came out, and the medical system was, so as even though we're going over it now, it's a very different time that we're in. And we,
Especially with medical marijuana.
yeah, with all of it. So I think there's, it's just important to note that these are all really good. And I know the agency's taken significant steps to work on these, but just because we're seeing these here doesn't mean they're necessarily still issues or haven't been evolved. So would that be an accurate statement, would you say?
I mean, of course, with
Okay.
audits, it's, it's a point in time. So
Yeah.
things evolve and change and, already, especially in marijuana, things change so quickly that, yeah. Some of this may apply, some of this, we may have already implemented, or the context has changed. So, yeah.
The idea of this was to give some historical data that we had not received in the past, or many of you have not received in the past, and to give you an idea as to what these look like. In the past, we would get an audit report that would have all these deficiencies, and then on the back page it said, well, we never gave them the money to do these things, to make these changes, to have the personnel. And of course, a lot of what we do is based on what the legislature does, passes, and then allows us to do. I thought it was important that we would get an idea as to how this works, like diversion and illegal bottle. Who thinks about illegal bottles coming across the Columbia to be
Yeah,
like
they're not thought about.
crooks or inventive people?
I believe there was a Seinfeld episode about
That's
it.
right.
But, yeah.
I didn't say that. Thank you. Continue.
Yeah. So the second bucket of recommendations was about improving the accuracy of lab testing data. The recommendations were that OLCC should update test result tracking requirements to ensure results in Metric can be traced to the specific lab that performed a test. Require that all marijuana certificates of analysis be stored in Metric where they can be reconciled with reported lab test results. examine whether requiring lab staff to obtain worker permits would increase lab accountability. And then work with ORLAP, and I looked this up this morning, was like Oregon Environmental Laboratory Accreditation Program, and the legislature to ensure appropriate and sufficient staff coverage to better monitor lab practices and review test data. So yeah, that's very relevant right now. Next slide, please. Management agreed with all 8 recommendations that applied to OLCC, and implementation was ongoing. These are ongoing issues, but it had a start date of July 1st, 2019. Any other questions about that audit before we move on?
Commissioner? Director?
It is fast, you know, for someone coming into this work, how fast this industry has moved and how, as Nicole said, you know, and Nathan and his team, Amanda, this was a great education for me to see in this point in time, you know, with the Cole memo and then the rescission of the Cole memo, and then where we are as in 2023. It's really, I think it is important to do what you're doing, Mr. Chair, to do a step back and see where we are, because where we have been, because this is just a changing market, changing environment, changing federal landscape. So this was really good for me to read as far as trying to educate myself, basically.
So when Stacy was in a different position, it was very important to keep me out of jail with the Cole memorandum.
Yeah, that's right. And this is a lot closer to that time,
Yes,
you know?
thank you, by the way.
Keeping you out of jail. Maybe you're not telling me everything.
Please.
All right. So our next category is IT audits. There's been one recent IT audit, and it also had a follow-up report. It's on the same topic about cannabis information systems. So we have the luxury of being able to see kind of how Secretary of State rated our implementation after the fact. But I'll talk through the findings on the next slide. They found there were data reliability issues with the self-reported data in the cannabis tracking system and an insufficient number of trained compliance inspectors. Found that OLCC should improve the process for ensuring the security and reliability of data, both in CTS and in the marijuana licensing system. Found that OLCC had not implemented an effective IT security management program for the agency as a whole. And finally, OLCC had not formally developed a disaster recovery plan and had not tested backup files to ensure they could be used to restore mission critical applications and data.
Excuse me, when did this report come out?
Oh, I believe the initial one was maybe 2018.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Next slide, please. So there were 17 total recommendations, and for the sake of time, I'm going to focus on the ones that they were not fully implemented. So the good news is 10 were considered implemented or resolved as of the 2019 follow-up, but 5 were partially implemented and 2 were not implemented. Next slide, please. So on this slide, I've summarized kind of what was missing to prevent these from being fully implemented recommendations. The first was to evaluate the need for and provide an adequate number of inspectors. And they found that we had not yet determined the total number of inspectors needed. The second was to develop and implement policies and procedures for monitoring software as a service vendors. And at the time, OLCC was working to update contract language related to security and hosting requirements, and that was still in progress. The next one was to update and test OLCC's information security plan. OLCC had adopted DAS's standard plan, but they required some addenda to customize it to agency circumstances, and that had not happened yet. The next one was to transition software off obsolete platforms, and OLCC was in the process of doing that by transitioning network and server infrastructure to the state data center, but that was not complete yet at the time. And then the last partially implemented recommendation was to develop and implement a process to remediate weaknesses identified in risk assessments and audits. At the time, the agency had developed some ad hoc processes for tracking responsibility for recommendations and recording actions taken, but Secretary of State found that they would not ensure that future findings were appropriately addressed. And I can comment on that one because it falls within my wheelhouse. And I can say that it is my priority in my position to establish a formal follow-up process for all audit recommendations. And I hope to launch that after legislative session ends. The next slide, please. These two, they determined were not implemented. I'll summarize the reasons why. The first was to implement change management processes in line with industry best practices. And this was a question of prioritizing. The agency chose not to implement it while they were focused on replacing the marijuana licensing system. And as you know, we are still deep in that process at this point. The second was to develop and document an entity-wide disaster recovery plan. And again, OLCC chose to postpone implementation of that until the transition to the state data center was complete. So I think that might be, yeah, let's go to the next slide, but I think that might be the end. No, yeah, so any questions on the IT audits before we move on?
Anyone?
Or, may I ask, the IT audit, we're just talking about marijuana here, but our whole enterprise system, looking at that, and how many, I mean, this just seems so huge that we're going from marijuana, then we've got liquor as well, and so many different systems.
Yeah, there are many different
Yeah,
systems.
so how many audits would that be? I mean, this seems enormous with the amount of data that we have that we're trying to track and trying to improve and trying to bring update with a rapid change in data.
You're absolutely right. We have a lot of systems, a lot of change going on. So I know that IT is a priority for me to focus on in terms of internal audit.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are many different ways that you can approach it. You can look at kind of an overall governance perspective, or you can zero in on specific systems like you suggested. So it's very likely that that's going to end up in the next year's audit plan, given everything that's going on.
That's probably why we get audited so frequently, is because it's necessary.
Yeah.
Is that accurate? I mean, it's because the agency gets audited relatively frequently, or has up to this point. I think that's kind of been a necessity, especially with the changing nature of it. So
Absolutely, yeah.
And one of the conversations we had yesterday with some supporters has to do with, IT being able to speak with one another and possibly having one system, which is better than 8 systems or a giant Rolodex in the back room. So that's going to be an ongoing conversation for all of us as we move forward, both for the warehouse and for our stakeholders.
Absolutely. I think having modern, efficient systems is vital to serving our customers. We want to make sure they're operating.
Hear from the licensees from the liquor store owners and, amount of time they're spending doing paperwork.
Yeah.
That could be just, I'm a Luddite, so I'm probably throwing stuff out here but just to be able to eliminate that and with a hit of a button, they would be doing a lot, big favor for them.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Doherty, same thing. I hear the same thing from our folks that streamlining the online is critical, maintaining our data. And I want to give a bit of a shout out or a thank you for the DAS Enterprise Information Systems. Scott Emery in particular has stepped up to help us as we move through this time, to have someone at the enterprise level work with Christy Scott and be there, step in as a CIO basically to really help with this critical area. And so one of the things in certain times, agencies complain, oh my gosh, we have to go through all of these DAS stage gate steps. Well, right now I'm thankful. I'm thankful for them and the role they have. Because we've all learned in the state of Oregon, IT needs to be an enterprise level, statewide level, because you can't have agencies working on their own. You have to have it all supported by that state level. So it will be a commitment area, and it's an area that we're focused on as a staff. And just wanted to thank Scott in particular for his support and his shared leadership with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, let's move on to our last category here, financial audits. So as I mentioned, Secretary of State does financial audits of state agencies every year. And if they find anything significant, they'll summarize it to us in a management letter, and it will also appear in the statewide single audit. So we had financial audit findings from those single statewide audits for fiscal year 2016, 17, 2019, 20, and 2020, 2021. So we'll go over those briefly on the next slide. So first, in 2016, 17, they recommended that OLCC regularly review access to applications to make sure that employees only have the access required for their jobs, and to also periodically review the activity of users who have excessive access and make sure they're not doing anything inappropriate with that access. Management agreed with that response and proposed an anticipated completion date of August 1st, 2018. There were two recommendations in 2019-20. The first was to complete agent inventory audits for liquor agents for all stores that hadn't had one in the last 12 months as soon as possible, and also to ensure that audit processes were documented in formal written procedures. Management agreed with that one as well and proposed implementing it by the end of the year in 2022. And the second recommendation was, you can see a theme here, perform regular periodic system access reviews to ensure continued appropriateness of assigned user access, to make sure that process is documented in policy. Management agreed with that and then proposed an anticipated completion date at the end of 2020. And next slide. It's our last one. We've made it. So fiscal year 2021, they recommended that we strengthen internal controls, and this has to do with a reconciliation process between our internal general ledger system and the state accounting system. And the goal of that is to ensure that the appropriate amount is being transferred from the liquor control fund to the general fund each month. So management agreed with that response as well, and the anticipated completion date was within the 2022 fiscal year. So we've made it to the end. I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Sure. Yeah. How are we we're not the only ones doing this in the country, and so how are we coordinating, or are we coordinating with other entities? I think Chair brought this up earlier, that with NAPCA or with other.
Yeah, I'd have to get back to you on that one, or maybe direct you to staff who work more closely
That
with
would be great if
NAPCA.
you let me know who to talk to. I don't mean to put that on you, but I'm
Yeah,
sure, I think
absolutely.
we're doing it, but I just don't know what.
Yeah.
How we're coordinating that.
We're going to cooperate more fully with our association that we're involved in. They've offered to help us with that information, which was a great conversation to have. And so we will be able to get that more information quickly, and that information will be very current in today's time.
Yeah, just again, my learning, 18 states like us, 25% of the distilled spirits market in the United States. We've got a lot of partners that our staff can lean into. Others have done this. We want to walk through IT updates with them. So this is part of my education. Met with some of the folks this week, and that's a great. It's an opportunity, and one that we would be. It's going to help the business. It's going to help security of IT. It's going to help all of our all of our partners. So it's a commitment area that we have to work with the others that have been there and done that, so for sure.
And it's important to note that we are unique in the country in that we control both cannabis and the spirits.
Yeah.
And what I found is that we're also unique in the situation that we cross-train an organization to do both
Oh.
and to handle both. And what was surprising to me is that the people we were talking to yesterday were going, "You do?" Well, yes, we do. And I think we do it very effectively.
We're gonna be leading and learning in this, in this whole process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Yes.
I hope so.
Nicole,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Excellent. Very well done.
Okay. Legislative updates.
Hello, Rosie.
Hi there.
Mornings, for the record, Rosie Shotkin, thanks for the opportunity to discuss a little bit of the legislation that's going on. It's forever changing, but we're in a really great position with some of the priorities that were already discussed. I really want to kind of give an overview of the governor's approach to the legislation we're seeing, because it is the governor's policy. We had 8 bills, legislative concepts out there. They were all technical fixes and issues relating to actually the Secretary of State's audit from 2019 involving the cannabis lab, for example. And so her approach was really about looking at this from a behavioral standpoint as well, asking us what are our priorities with respect to helping Oregonians who are in need of help with respect to health and public safety. And so we shared a number of bills, and they honed in on 3 particular bills. The LC concepts related to, I think Colin mentioned 2 of them, the lab integrity, and another bill focusing on, of course, alcohol delivery. We have several other bills out there relating to a lawsuit that was developed, and we're pushing that forward with the Legislative Assembly as well to take a look at that. But I'll just focus in on the bills that we have with respect to the agency and addressing some of the concerns. So I'll start with House Bill 2931. So the governor had asked a number of legislators to drop bills for us, but we had task force. So it's a confluence of issues why these bills are now the issues that were discussed back in 2019 are now a huge focus. In 2020, the legislators worked, and 2021 worked together on House Bill 3000 and Senate Bill 1564. Those are the task force bills to look into the issues that were happening in Southern Oregon. House Bill 2391 came out of that as well, but it's also a focus of the audit. That is the integrity, the reference lab, to establish a reference lab with Oregon Health Authority, Secretary of State, also included OLCC and also OSP as part of that collaboration. So House Bill 2931 was a placeholder initially. I think the task force members, Representative Marsh, Representative Morgan, Senator Brzezinski, and Senator Hansel, that's a bill that they're bicameral, bipartisan, so there's a lot of support behind that bill to move it forward. It's also in the governor's budget, so she's putting the weight of funding for that program. The other bill, House Bill 3308, is a really significant bill. We've been working on that one for a long time with Representative Margaret Doherty. He brought the bill back again in 2021, and we're bringing the bill back with the power of the governor's office as well in support, strong support as a priority legislation. I think that bill is critical in the sense that we've increased, several bills have increased the delivery of alcohol and wine. We have made permanent the delivery of cocktails to go. And we're also looking this session to increase the volume of beer being distributed to the door. And so all we're asking for is to, in the protection of minors and people who are intoxicated, to allow us some regulatory authority at the door. We've been discussing that with stakeholders as well. It has been a really great and robust discussion. And the bill is currently being amended, and we're waiting for the amendments, which will be out on tomorrow, on Friday. So the final bill, and I want to actually acknowledge a number of the policy folks who've been working on these bills. Amanda Borup, I know we've talked about the communications team, and they've been greatly helpful in a number of these bills as well. House Bill 3049 is also a priority bill. We have already provided testimony to Amanda Borup, and that bill is a registration of hemp products with OLCC. And this way we can do a lot of the testing as well in terms of ensuring that when you're going to buy a product, it's not intoxicating, and that we are putting the labeling for kids and minors, and people who generally want to see what's in their products. So that is an important bill that we're moving forward as well. That also came from the governor's office, and we're also moving it through the task force.
What bill is that?
That is House Bill 3049 with a -1 amendment.
Thank you.
Any questions so far?
Keep going.
Keep going, okay. House Bill 2013 is also a priority bill. That bill is really, we're working with a number of stakeholders on that bill. I think it was brought forward on behalf of the legislators to, not quite sure how much we can discuss that right now because it's still undergoing amendments. So I'll just leave it at that high level of overview until we get the amendments back that we can share. But right now, for the most part, it is to correct our direct to consumer delivery and to ensure that we are we're treating all our licensees similarly. So, but that's for the most part all our bills that we're working on. Of course, there's a number of bills out there that are having an impact on us. Senate Bill 538, the -1 amendment, that's out there as well. That's the bank fees. House Bill 3312 that just came out recently. It's a study bill. We're not quite sure what the full language is going to look like as yet, but we haven't discussed that with stakeholders. And Senate Bill 616, there are a number of legislators who that bill would probably increase the amount of beer being delivered at the door. But the important facet there is that a number of legislators would like to see that we're having some regulation at the door before that bill moves forward. So sure.
Can you expand on that House Bill 3312?
Commissioner Ball, Commissioner Porter, I think there's very little to expand on that bill because right now when you look at the bill, it's really just a study bill. And so it really is impacting the Department of Revenue. They're the ones who need to study and take a look at where the funds from the sale of alcohol is going.
And Rosie, it could be a placeholder bill. I don't know if it is.
It looks like it's a placeholder bill right now. It hasn't fully.
So sometimes in the legislature, I'll put on my little legislative lawyer hat. You put in a bill that says relating to something very broad. I don't know what that means relating to.
Right.
And then you amend it later. So you basically have a vehicle to do what you see as necessary. And so that one, we're not sure. Yeah, if you look at the language, it's 7 lines right now.
Right.
So we're not sure if that's the actual concept that will be worked through the legislature, or if there'll be a significant amendment that will basically gut that 6 lines out and put another concept in. So we'll track it. I looked it up, Commissioner, while you were asking, and so we'll see what where that one goes.
I think it's interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And, this is the time, just to, we're in the critical time where you got a lot of bills come into the system, and the leaders of the legislature keep a tight schedule. And so what they've told everyone is you got to have your bills by tomorrow. They need to be scheduled for work session.
I just thought it was pretty big on prevention.
Yeah, it is.
And I just got an education. I did not realize that Measure 110 didn't or isn't able to address prevention, which is odd, but that one sounds really like it might fill in the gaps or the void.
Yeah, and so it's really timely you bring it up, because we'll see, because it has to be scheduled for if it's going to go anywhere.
Right. It has to be scheduled. It has to have a public hearing and a work session by tomorrow at 5 p.m.
It'll have to be scheduled by then, and then it'll have to actually have that work session by early April, is it?
Yes, by April 4th, I believe.
So we'll watch it. We'll watch it and see what happens and what transpires with it. So Ms. Shack hit the big 4 that you got hundreds of bills that go in?
Hundreds of bills that go in, and a correction on behalf of one of our licensees who's here today, Salim, on the credit card fee bill, Senate Bill 538. The agents do pay the credit card fees for everything. So if you walk into the store and you're buying a bottle of
Vodka.
If you walk into, and you also buy lemons, and you also buy ginger beer, because you are thinking of a particular drink you're going home to make. You use your credit card and you pay for everything. There's no distinction. So for us, we spoke to the senator that brought the bill forward to share that concern. And we also have the 50-cent surcharge. So in terms of paying for the fees, the question is, how do we distinguish those things? Also, you use your debit card and then cash. And so all of those are different. So the question for stakeholders was, how can we separate the fees and also ensure that the consumer is bearing the cost of just the taxes or the credit card fees
on those non-exclusive items, right? Because what you're saying, so on the vodka, the agent, we've got a silent partner, right? The state's taking a cut, but on the lemons, on the ginger beer, on the he or she, that agent takes all of the keeps all the revenue.
And that's what comes back to the OLCC.
So have we heard from the agents on how they feel about that? Because, and Colin said 1.7%. That's, I haven't seen 1.7% in a long time. It's upward, it's north of that. So maybe merchant fees we're getting a nice deal from, banks and merchants, but that's potentially, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars, Salim, to an agent.
So if
Who are you?
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Salim Noorani, and I'm a liquor agent. And I'm the right person to provide clarity here. When we are talking about credit card charges that the state is paying, I want to make clear and absolutely clear, the state is only paying for the liquor portion. For your example, somebody comes and buys a bottle of vodka and a ginger beer, and any other thing, non-liquor item. It's a single charge because that's a convenience to the customer. We don't want to run two separate registers. So it's a single charge. The charge goes to the state. At the end of the year, we as agents are required to provide how much we sold in credit card in non-liquor items, and we are charged that fee back. So the state is not liable for non-liquor items being charged on the credit card.
So you're paying the.
We are paying the
You have to
fees.
pay that at the end of the year to the. to the
Correct,
state?
correct, because at the end of the year, we reconcile the reports. And by next quarter, so we pay this every month, so it is prorated. So every month, we as agents, or for my one store, I'm paying about $600 every month in credit card fees. And then that's reconciled at the end of the year that, okay, you sold this much in non-liquor items, and this is your charge, and here's your reconciliation report. So this particular item is not made very clear to the legislators. So when you're talking, and I've had discussion with Senator from Hillsborough.
Ms. Tolman, is her bill?
It's her bill, right? So we have had discussions with her, and I was trying to explain that the state is not paying those fees. They're only paying for what is a state item.
The alcohol.
Which is, which is distilled spirits, the
Okay,
alcohol.
but as a business owner, if I have to pay 100% of the merchant fees, credit card fees on alcohol, but I'm paying 100% of that on the alcohol, but I'm only catching a certain percentage of, I would feel a certain kind of way about that, because you've got, the state's taking a certain percent out of, you got a silent partner with the state, right?
Sure.
So as a business owner, you're only getting, say, on a bottle of vodka, what's your, what is the state usually?
Approximately 8.5%.
Okay, 8.5, okay. I'm just saying, as a business owner, if I've got to pay 100% of the merchant, the bank fees.
No, I would be very upset.
Right,
Because if we are talking as a concept, passing on that 1.7% fee to us as liquor owners, and you say, okay, you are now responsible. So that 1.7%, I'm paid only 8.5% on my total sales.
Mhm.
So 1.7%, you're talking about almost 25%.
Can I ask you, Rick, but her bill is broader than just OLCC, right?
Right. and-
Yeah, so that's, I get you, I think that, I hear what you're saying too, because that's what we're tasked with, but it's not just specific to.
No, it is across
Yeah.
all agencies.
And let's say there was an issue with, and I'm just thinking down the road, but if there was an issue, would there be something we could address in the contract? So I'm just trying to think, maybe it's probably too far in advance to think about. It seems like it's a broader concept that we might be.
Commissioner Melendez, Senator Sullivan, the -1 amendment to her bill, having listened to us during the discussion, we spoke to the committee, members of the committee, and what she's done is put a provision in that may, so the agency may adapt the changes. So it allows for the OLCC to work with stakeholders on coming up with an approach that works best for everyone. So we don't have to implement it as yet.
That's what's, so we'll have, okay,
It's
that's
not
good.
mandatory. It's
If I may provide another comment, I'm a business person. Agencies, the state agency, and bureaucracy has its own rules and all ways. And those two don't necessarily meet. It's a simple cost of goods. That's how I look at it. That's how any business person would look at it. If you have a restaurant, that's how you would look at it. and you bill that as part of your cost of goods. So what I don't understand, and obviously I don't understand all the legislative concepts. Why is it listed as separate line item? It should not be. That was my question then to Solomon, was when you're looking at the product, bottle of alcohol coming into the store, you have a cost there. Then you have an additional cost of shipping it. So my question to her was, are you gonna now put a line item that this is the shipping cost that the customer should pay, because it should all be cost of goods sold. Then it takes this issue away completely, because we are no longer talking about it is cost of doing business.
Commissioner Dora? Finished?
Good,
Anything?
good, thank you.
Thank you.
That's good. No, I think, yeah, I just wanted to put on the record, it sounds like it's a broader concept, but she's been good enough to put additional language in that would give us the ability to address it. So I think, but yeah, well, I understand I understand what you're saying too, but I think, yeah, it's a good deal. Thank you. Keep the conversation going.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're gonna have retail services. That's you, Mr. Fleming. And after that, we're gonna take, we'll go into the executive session. Give them what we can do.
Better get it right. Chair Revolt. Commissioners, good morning. For the record, Brian Fleming, Director of Retail Services. I've had a couple of snafus, so I hope it comes right back up with my computer where it broke the materials. So give me just 1 second and we'll get started. I was ready and then it just turned off. Okay, it is still here. Great.
That'll come out in the IT audit.
I'm not an IT person. I don't even play one on TV. So first up, we have 2 matters before you today. Spouse-child appointment for store 1193 in Eugene, and then Springfield store in Springfield, Oregon, sister community to Eugene. So the first item I have in front of you is a spouse-child appointment for 1193 William D. Minahan versus William J. Minahan, who has taken over the store, has operated this. His father resigned as a result of medical disability. Under 471 and 752, many of you have seen these before, it is given spouse-child preference in the matter of moving over to a new person in the family, essentially. They're both here today. I'm going to call him Bill because we go by Bill. Bill and Will are here today, but over the last almost year, Will has taken over the business from his father. At one point, Bill Minahan had 2 stores in Eugene and gave up one to focus solely on this store that Will is operating today. One thing that I think it's important to note is, although you see presentations in front of the commissioners, we generally don't share a lot of that because a district manager works with the store to take over and creates a commitment for the future, much in what you do with your presentations as a commitment to the future. That's also included in here in a memo format from the district manager. So over the year, some upgrades are done, and then we have the future state, which is what we're looking for to keep our stores modern, well lit, bright, safe, secure. So with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions. They are here should you have any questions, but this store is well run. This is, we put some fluff for the incremental because we think it's important, but this is a well-run store. It's clean. And they do, they're a pretty high volume store.
So could I have J and D step up to the plate?
Absolutely. They're just off to my left shoulder.
Come on down.
I didn't warn you much, but please feel free to come up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I will mention that at some point, 6, 8, 10 years ago, Bill, Dad, was, go ahead, have a seat, and at some point, we'll have you state your name, but he also was the president of the Associated Liquor Stores of Oregon, so known Bill for many, many years. So with that said, go ahead, just state your name and store for the record.
Yeah, morning. My name is Will Minahan. Store is Northside Liquor, Eugene 1193, Eugene, Oregon.
Commissioners,
So
Sure.
you're not gonna win,
Yeah.
I,
Chair.
no, I was gonna say I know it well, but I'm not gonna say that. I'm aware of the location.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And you had, what was responsible for your growth? Is that 11% growth over what, a year or?
Yeah, a lot of it was focused on bar relations. Familiar with fintech payment services? Kind of a middle partner, yeah, less payment, more electronic for dealing with bars. So a lot of bars are having to leave checks and be there for deliveries, cash and delivery. And fintech is a middleman. So nobody in town took advantage of having it. It's more paperwork and it's more bookkeeping for the office. But we were the first ones to jump on board with fintech. So I went out to some bars, and some of the bigger distributors, some of the beer vendors already had offered it to them. So they were already networked with it. So when I came and offered it, or Bill did, and my parents, it was a big offering that nobody offered. So a lot of our growth was the bars, and I went out and created those relationships, and majority of that growth.
Smart move. Thank you.
Commissioner Doherty, so fintech is a ACH payment type. It's used broadly across distributors to a grocery store, convenience, thousands of accounts or orders in Oregon. And so we got this done about 3-4 years ago, where they could do ACH payments, automated clearinghouse. Fintech is the go-between, and state treasury had to authorize them so that they could put all this money where it belongs, which is in the state treasury account. For corporate accounts, Applebee's, Red Robin, all those things, to find a authorized check signer from the manager or cash is what they did. So this has created something for corporate accounts where it makes it pretty darn easy, so that they can also manage it from afar as well.
What's the fee for that?
Actually, for this commission and all of you as commissioners, our cost is zero. They have to pay the fees. It's pretty low relatively, and that was one of the things, is we weren't going to pay for the fees for the things, but it's pretty low relatively. They're one of the most widely known in North America for fintech payment and processing.
What's their name?
Fintech.
Fintech.
FINTECH. And this was a big task long ago to get treasury and then create the rules and parameters around the financial. We have one piece left missing, which is Sunday sales. Tricky for us because of the way we need to move it ahead. And I won't ask Colin to do this, but at some point, with a new point of sale system statewide, I think the future is bright. Which today, there's standalone credit card terminals for stores. They're not integrated. And what that means is you have to do something here to get to the register here. And we had to decouple that about 8-10 years ago as a result of PCI DSS. You may know, payment card industry standards. And we don't determine it. It's the big credit card companies, but we want to integrate, just like when you go to your grocery store, swipe, pin if they require it, out the door you go. So I think that's the future of retail experience as well.
Cool.
More IT, yeah.
And Bill, just stand up. I won't make you come
Hold on. Commissioner?
Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted Bill's been around quite a while. He's helped to push the system forward. He's certainly one of those more modern, relevant stores that's helping us so much. Dad started it. I think he was pretty young when he helped his dad, but Bill traveled up, and this is a requirement. For your spouse child appointment, you must come to the commission because I think it's important. Because you're gonna.
Thank you for coming out. We appreciate it. very much.
That's it.
Can I just say one thing?
Mhm.
He's done an outstanding job for me for many, many years. When I had to step away, it was comforting to know that he could step in, and my wife works there as well. And it is really a family environment. Really appreciate all the years with the OLCC and the things that it gave me, and now hopefully it's giving my family. So thank you very much.
Are you gonna be
Thank
in
you.
trouble with your wife if this doesn't go well?
They suggested that I not come in. That they have it handled, and they certainly do.
Commissioner Curran?
Well, that answers my question. I was gonna ask you, what's the first thing we're going to do? I guess that's get rid of the old guy.
Give them all a raise, right?
So, but do you have any plans with the store, any remodels or anything?
Yeah,
that
great
you-
question.
You want to do?
Yeah, great
I'm
question.
Curious to know.
Started doing some already. We did new track lighting, of course, new fixturing, new signs. Just kind of giving it just freshening up a little bit. Like Brian said, it's a store that we've always focused on making the presence really nice. Flooring polished every month. I mean, it's just keeping up with it, but definitely giving it a new, fresh, modern look. Yeah,
Good.
lighting.
Good. Thank you.
Definitely.
None here. Congratulations on your outstanding
I was
audit,
gonna
your
say
latest
so, yeah.
outstanding audit that
Thank you.
came from
Yeah.
the district manager, so,
Appreciate it.
no. And thank you so much, Bill, for your service too, and many years of running that store and generating revenue for the state. Thank you.
Yes, it's clear from the submitted paperwork that you are more than competent and capable of taking over this job. So it's good to see that you've put in a lot of work and to get here. So we
Thanks.
appreciate that.
Commissioner?
Thanks, Bill.
Oh, it's a great job. It's family business, that's for sure. So
Appreciate it.
good deal.
Right at, actually, when I was right out of high school, we opened our first store 20 years ago, and like 2.5 weeks after I turned 18 is when I started in the store. So
Good answer.
yeah, that's all, I love it. It's all done, and very excited to do the job. Thank you.
All right,
Chair.
thank you.
Yes.
I move to appoint Will J. Minahan as the permanent store agent of 1193 Eugene Northeast, effective April 1st, 2023.
Lauren?
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Porter, Commissioner Miletus,
Yes.
Chair Rovell.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you all.
And thank you.
You're all set.
All right.
So my machine broke again, but I've got it up, and so I have the materials. And I have a pretty good memory still. So the next we have for Springfield Gateway, this is a result of Salim Narani's resignation. He at one point had 3 stores. If you recall, some of you were here during expansion, and a liquor agent could have more than 2 stores if it was an expansion store. This is in Salim has Albany, Corvallis. He lives in Albany, and so this is to relinquish control to a new agent and get back down to 2, if you will. So average compensation for this store is approximately $3.2 million, slightly behind last year. I do recall when this was under 1.5 million not too long ago, 8 years ago. But the addition of the one-stop shop convenience, beer, wine, spirits is, I think, what's helped them ahead. So with that said, I have 2 finalists here for you today. And I'm getting to the front page, and I'll get this. The first applicant is Harpreet Sangha under AJS Investments. So please come up, Harpreet. And when we get started, state your name for the record. And then we used to have a person that Time president.
Oh.
You have approximately 5 to 7
I can't do it
minutes.
now.
5 to 7 minutes for your presentation, and it'll be up on the screen, and then just advance the slides through Laura, so.
So we're giving 7 minutes, is that correct? And then.
That is entirely up to this commission. We average.
Remember my job here, so 7 minutes. I'll give you a warning at 6 minutes.
Please. And I know you're soft-spoken, so please, a little bit more today.
Okay.
So,
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Harpreet Sangha for the record. First slide, please. First, I want to say thank you for everybody to giving me this opportunity to present store 1143 Springfield. I am born and raised in India. I came to United States as a student in December 2008. I gained my MBA from University of Findlay, Ohio. In my 13 years of experience in retail industry and accounting, I have gained hands-on knowledge of successfully operating a business. I have a beautiful family of 5, which includes my 2 kids, 11 and 6-year-old, and my retired mother-in-law, who help me around the house and with kids. And this will also give me and my husband enough time to focus on our career path. In my 13 years, I helped someone else manage and grow their businesses. Now I feel I'm now ready and excited to dive into my venture of own. Next slide, please. My retail experience include cash handling, bank deposit, inventory control, customer service, staffing, making schedule, and payroll record keeping. I will bring with me in-depth knowledge and proven skills in maximizing resources optimally and making business more profitable by focusing on sales and operating costs. Next slide, please. The front store is 1936 square feet, which this area is used for like 400 for the storefront and 536 for storage. Next slide, please. My vision for the store is that I would like to do some interior and exterior upgrades and also promote licensing and consumer sale. Next slide, please. For exterior upgrades, I will put the new store sign. Next slide, please. Also installing new cameras and security monitoring company, and also replace the window posters to something new which will connect to the business more. Next slide, please. For interior upgrade, I will change the current hanging sign to something new and modern. Next slide, please. Front lighting will be changed to the new modern track lighting and more LED lights. Give the store modern look. Next slide, please. Modern video surveillance system, which includes 360-degree rotatable cameras to capture each and every corner of the store. Next slide, please. I will also reduce the number of coolers to add more shelving area to put beer, to put more liquor display. Next slide, please. Wall should be painted white, which is currently gray, to give the brighter, fresh, and open look to the store. Next slide, please. To increase the licensee sale, I will focus on making relationship with the restaurant, hotels, and club. Next slide, please. This is a sale comparison and composition comparison in the last year. You can see Springfield has 3 stores and this store has least bar sales, that is licensee sales. Next slide, please. But there is I can see a lot of room to grow this business because this area is surrounded by the major hotel chain and also fine dining restaurant that hold bar licenses. And I will going to work on it because currently it's only 1.72% and I see a lot of room to grow this business. Plus I'm offering free delivery and other services for getting the more bar business. Next slide, please. Fast food chain like In-N-Out Burger and Chick-fil-A is also coming in the neighboring plaza. This will bring more traffic and more people to the area. Also, I'm planning to put QR codes for the customer and to get customers to browse more recipes. Next slide, please. I'm planning to put lease a space on a digital banner next to the exit because this store is situated on the border of Eugene and Springfield, just one exit from the Highway 5. And the median income in Springfield is over 52,000 and in Eugene it's 85,000. And there is a lot of room to grow and get more business. And I will work toward and putting a sign for a few months on the board will definitely bring more footfall in the store. Next slide, please. I am also extending store hours, at least 12 extra hours to the weekly operation of the store, which will help me to push the sales volume. Next slide, please. This is my timeline of changes and how much the cost involved. Like in the first month, I will work on new paint, putting new sign and video surveillance. Next 3 months, I will work on shelving and display coolers, and billboard space will be occupied as soon as it is available based on the discussion with Outfront, and then renovate the interior lighting in the first 6 months. Next slide, please. I am available to the store 54 plus hour or as needed. Currently, I have spent around 22 hours in the store from February 23rd to learn the ropes of the business, as well as to build relationship with the valuable staff members. And I'm planning to keep all the staff as it is. During this, my training, I learned about the daily operation of the And any questions, please?
Commissioners.
Thank you. Very
So
well,
much.
very well done. Did
Goes
you,
fast.
I missed, did you say you have some experience with a liquor store?
Not the liquor store. I work in a convenience store before.
Okay,
Yeah, from last 13 years.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, you're volunteering right now, is that what you're doing at the
Yes.
other store, and you're doing 20 to 22 hours?
Yes, I
there?
did.
I
work at Slim's all 3 stores to see how the delivery come or how to place an order, to just know more about the business before stepping in.
Yes, how has that gone for you?
It's very well. And I kind of feel like I can do it, but there is everything new to learn when we are on the floor, but I like it. And I feel very confident that I am capable of doing this.
Good. Are there things that you're planning on changing right away?
The right way, it's a good store. It is making money. So the first I will change only minor, just like it's now me, like changing wall color, changing shelving, create more room for more liquor display. And then in future, I might, if the next space is available, I might do it bigger because it's a very tiny store. It's all is 1,936 square feet. And only 1,400 is the sale floor and 536 is used for storage, restroom, office. So that's what I'm thinking at this point.
So has shadowing his stores, has it made you more excited or
Yes.
less excited, more excited?
I've been more excited.
Okay, so
I learned a lot during this experience.
Can you give me an example of one thing that you've learned that surprised you the most about working in the liquor store?
Like, the first thing is how to, in my previous work experience, usually I use the handheld for placing the order. But how with the OLCC for the liquor order, how big is the delivery? And then how to receiving the delivery is more tricky because I was at Slim's store and it was over around $19,000 delivery and it take us 4 hours straight, and then how to read the barcode, that was completely new to me. Yeah, because it with alphabet and then alphabet is converted to number and this is fifth, this is traveler, this is. So that's what was completely new from my past experience.
Great. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
I don't know this store well either, but I know where it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All set.
Quick question, how long do you have left on that lease?
This one, if I open this other document,
Uh-oh.
it doesn't break. But I think it's 2 years.
Additional, it's 2, but he has additional 10-year of lease because, so he has option to renew it.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 remaining.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd, 2, and then an option which, can renew for the same spaces.
But I talked to the property management, they are okay with the lease, but the OLCC just want to keep the lease for 5 years and then they are okay to give us more additional leases lease time if we are interested.
Sure. And did you say because the small, what is it?
No, the next space is for army recruiting and the hearing aid and the pet additional, like the next door.
Oh, gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
I think they said like maybe the army recruiting one, it's the temporary. If they are moving, then they will give us opportunity if we are interested.
Perfect.
There's a high probability, Commissioner, that it will go vacant and then
Yes.
possibility of expansion. Today, again, although 1,900, pretty small, comparison to what you've seen some of our stores, doing over $3.2 million.
Yeah, it's
So
impressive.
It's really,
Yeah.
it's really good, clean, well-kept store.
It's a busy place.
Yes.
When you drive by it.
When I drive by, I wave at both stores.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're all set.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, your second applicant. My materials are holding firm so far. Deepika Verma, please come on up. Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
So please state your name for the record and then just advance the slides through Laura.
Good morning. My name is Deepika Verma.
And I'm Josh West.
And how are you two? Are you business partners?
We're engaged.
Oh.
Sorry.
We're working on it.
Because I didn't see anything, but
This is a sole applicant, Deepika, but
okay.
with fiance here as well. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, we know when to start.
Yes, you've got 7 minutes. I'll give you a warning at 6.
Okay, thank you. All right, good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Deepika Verma.
I'm Josh West.
We want to thank you again for the opportunity to apply to be the new agents and present you our vision for Liquor Store 1143. A little bit about us. We grew up in Wenatchee, Washington. Josh and I are high school sweethearts and have been together for almost 10 years. We love to travel, go skiing and snowboarding, and we also love to stay home and hang out with our 2 cats, Artemis and Frida. We value family, kindness, integrity, and have big dreams of being entrepreneurs. Next slide, please. I have 10 years of experience in customer service positions. While working at my family's hotels, I was responsible for payroll, maintenance, hiring, training, and overall management. I also have extensive experience working in fast-paced environment. During my time at Trader Joe's, I learned how to manage inventory and by analyzing past sales. while also ensuring optimal customer service.
I also have extensive experience with customer service and marketing during my time at DPS Skis and as a leasing agent at a local apartment complex. Currently, I'm a mortgage loan analyst with Stancor Financial Group, specializing in commercial loans ranging from $500,000 to $20 million. I was instrumental in getting over $1 billion worth of loans to closing in 2022. I always ensure everything is done in compliance to keep the company safe in the event of an audit, and I also have excellent attention to detail. Next slide, please.
We recognize how well Salim and John have run the store for the past 20 years, and we want to use their foundation to build on. We will be committed to providing the highest level of service while offering a wide range of products to ensure we are a reliable and trusted liquor source for the city of Springfield and Eugene. Our mission statement reflects our ambition for growth and our fundamental beliefs. Next slide, please.
Here are the proposed improvements for the store in years 1 through 3. On the following slides, we have provided example photos of what we're planning. Next slide, please. In the initial year, we plan to physically enhance the store by upgrading the checkout counter, replacing the harsh fluorescent lighting with more eye-friendly alternatives, renovating the employee bathroom, and eliminating drop ceiling tiles to create a more spacious and expansive ambiance. Next slide, please. We have spoken with the landlord, Patty, about expanding the store into the space currently occupied by the hearing aid tenant. During this expansion, improvements will include a walk-in beer cooler, a tasting area, a larger humidor for increased tobacco selection, increased shelf space. This is all to enhance our customer shopping experience and diversify our product selection. The expansion will also allow us to increase the storage space as well as add a staff break room. Next slide, please.
Our vision is to create a welcoming, friendly, and natural atmosphere to enhance the overall experience for our customers. Our plan includes modernizing the store with updated paint, exterior and interior signage, trendy decor, unique backlighting for all our products, and all while incorporating sustainable design elements like earth tones and textures that reflect the spirit of the PNW. Next slide, please. Currently, the store has outdated signage to distinguish the different liquor selections and dated checkout counter. We plan to modernize the counter and install unique eye-catching signs that highlight our products, as well as fun beer and liquor signs that add a touch of vibrancy throughout the store. Next slide, please.
The classic drop ceiling tiles are outdated and make the store feel smaller than it should. We're going to remove the tiles and replace them with wood slats and unique lighting that will add depth and warmth while making the store feel much bigger. Next slide, please. We're also going to enhance the security system in the store with a second camera on the exterior and a third screen in the back left corner of the store to prevent any blind spots. This will ensure staff are kept safe and the inventory is protected, all while providing the opportunity to spot and improve any operational or customer service deficiencies. Next slide, please.
The largest majority of our customer base is mainly comprised of 35 to 60-year-olds. However, the 21 to 25-year-olds purchase more alcohol and they use Instagram 71% of the time. This is where we will mainly focus our social media marketing efforts to increase our customer base. Next slide, please. We will utilize social media to increase store visibility and establish brand identity in the community. Additionally, we plan to partner with other local businesses to create mutual benefits and expand our customer base. Next slide, please.
Our strategies outside of social media include offering free delivery to bar accounts, working with wedding venues, event planners, and connecting with catering companies in the area. We will also form relationships with nearby hotels, as well as restaurants with bars and clubs. These initiatives will expand our customer base, establish our brand, and increase our licensing sales. Next slide, please. Highlighted in green shows the ratio of licensee to consumer sales that our store had in 2022. As you can see, there's a large portion of the market that is waiting to be captured. By providing a web-based platform, working with FinTech, and offering the managers a direct line of communication with us, we will increase these licensee sales. Next slide, please. We are fully committed to this business. With $200,000 of our personal money going into the store, an additional line of credit for $200,000 to make any improvements right away. We also have a fully committed SBA loan for $615,000 that is ready to go. Next slide, please.
We are dedicated. For the past 3 weeks, I've driven over 4 hours from Beaverton daily to all of Salim's locations to learn the ins and outs of running a successful store. We have been pre-approved for an apartment that is less than 10 minutes away. 10 minutes away. The experience has been invaluable and we know we are ready for this opportunity. Salim graciously wrote us a letter of recommendation knowing he has full confidence in us and our business plan. We feel that we have what it takes to be successful liquor agents of store 1143. Next slide, please. Thank you so much, Chair and Commissioners. Please let us know if you have any questions or would like us to clarify.
Thank you.
You got a minute left. So you can-
I thought it was 6 minutes.
Thank you.
He's nicer than me. Commissioners.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hall was really made sure that we followed the time. So how did you get from Wenatchee to Eugene?
We both applied to grad school in Portland.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
and
was the main-
then, we stayed in Oregon, and I have, all my family is in Portland, Oregon, so I wanted to be.
Right here in the
They're
front
right
row.
here. And so I wanted to be closer to them.
And is your plan to move to Springfield?
Yeah, we have a pre-approved apartment,
There.
7 minutes away from the store.
And so how many, you said 4 hours, you've been spending 4 hours a day or 4 hours a week in the,
4 hours a
Drive.
day, because I live in Beaverton,
Right.
so I would drive to Albany, Corvallis, and Springfield daily to just shadow and train. And same with Josh.
so I just am interested in why Josh isn't part of when I went through this, I thought it was gonna be one applicant and then we had two of you. Is there in the future, are both of you gonna be part of it? Is there a reason that?
We're both gonna be a part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when we initially applied, we had talked to, Dean and then also, I can't remember who else, but they told Deepika just have her name on the application and also to have me present. So yeah, I will be a part of the store, on April 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full time too.
Yeah, full time.
Commissioner Kern, if I may,
Yeah.
it's entirely their choice how to apply. You
Yeah, oh,
already knew that.
yes.
The one thing when people do come as an individual is because of the deferred compensation and so you can't do it if you're a corporation or LLC. However, if you're an individual, you can have some of your long-term savings with deferred comp. And those are the choices of the applicants, none of us. Thank you.
Good. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
No questions?
Sure. You're gonna grow this by 7% annually?
Minimum, that's what
Minimum
our goal is,
7%
yeah.
annually. What do you think is one key to that 7% or more?
Well, I think one of the main ones is our social media marketing, trying to get the younger crowd in the door. And then as you saw, increasing licensee sales, using fintech, like was mentioned earlier, communicating with bar managers, having a direct line of communication with us, and just really networking and, getting our name out there in the community is going to be a huge help getting that sales number out there.
Thank you. Nice presentation.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Commissioner?
very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're all set.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Ryan, before you leave, I have a question.
I'm sorry?
I have a question.
Sure.
Every once in a while, I get a call from my friends basically is, how come I can't buy liquor in my grocery store? And are there any special rules that would exclude the large chains from being a licensee and have, I know we're in one or two perhaps grocery stores. What's the rules around that? And have we ever given multiple location sites to grocery stores, the national chains?
So to your question, your friends say, how come I can't get it? That is incorrect.
Oh, friend, one friend.
You have one friend. So you have one friend. Sorry, I got a giggle.
His only friend.
Yeah. So if you remember expansion way back, for some of you that were here all throughout, we actually had 8 or a dozen applications from Walmart. They had a lot of obstacles at the time with what was going in their own company. But we had a plan for, I think, 3 or 4. You were here. 3, but those fizzled out. We got 10 from a large chain with a W on the front, grocer, and they rescinded all of them. And the reason was because they couldn't control price and they want to be low price leader. We do have, so I got to use buckets for this because if you think traditional kind of good sized grocer, let's call it 12 to 40,000 square feet. Good sized grocers, there's about 25. Newport Avenue Market in Bend, they're probably north of 20,000 square feet. Ray's Food Place, 4 locations through expansion. And then, we have a host of, John Day, the only game, I think they're the only game in town, but Chester's Markets. Well, they also have a Chester's in Pacific City, Oregon. That bucket they're the primary grocer. There's nothing around for 15, 20 miles. We have about 40 in total where you could go get enough food for dinner, if you call it. And that's, what I call a small grocer versus the, 12, 15,000 plus. So there's about 40-ish, but then you have a whole host of others that have gas station. They have a loaf of bread, they got milk, they've got spirits, anything that you might need for the evening. So there's really about 40, but then there's a host of others that you could go to, not just for spirits, but complete your meal, if you're thinking about a grocer type thing. So does that help?
Yes. Great.
So, speaking of grocery stores and do we have any boundaries around if there's another liquor store close by?
Commissioner Doherty. So, we've used a lot of metrics over the years. We've got better at it. But we use population, travel time, distance. Your sister's area, we sandwiched a store in there that, it was only about a $1.8 million marketplace at the time for just the store. We did put a store in a store, pretty small, probably about as big as, this roughly corner, store to store, separate from the grocery. And that market today is a little north of 3 million. North of 3 million. This is from memory. So it is definitely, and the agent who was there, who was at 1.8 million, doubled down. Remember, you guys all remember the Gallimaufry and moved across the street. Well, he's on this growth trajectory. And so he's north of 2 million. James, if you're here, you remember off the top of your head, Spud Store annual.
Yeah, he just crossed 2 million last year, so.
Yeah, he's a sharp up.
Yeah. So small community, but in travel and tourism, let's face it, Ray's is not, probably all of you folks that are local, you go in there to supplement, but you go to the big stores of Bend, but they've done a good job for us too. They've maintained compliance. And, everybody missteps with, reporting a sales report or something, but they're very reactive, this grocer. But to your question, can a corporate grocer, Fred Meyer, Safeway, Albertsons, any of those traditional type apply and operate a store? The answer is yes. The commission's discretion has often been, please create a store in a store. We don't want to see it on the aisles of the grocery store at this time. And that's been your discretion all along.
So as long as they follow our rules, we're more than happy to have them be part of the family.
That's correct.
Just thought I'd mention that to the general population out there.
So,
right. Thank you. So, the commission will now go into executive session to deliberate on the agent selection pursuant to the authority of ORS 192.6602A. And if there are any media present, are they not, then I'm not going to read the entire paragraph. Oh, closer to this. Welcome back. We're reconvening now. First off, I want to thank everyone who has made a presentation. Over the years, we've seen candidates who have progressed to your level. And it is something we always enjoy. We have 2 very good candidates. We can't pick you both. However, we're going to be expanding again. And whoever isn't chosen, please keep it in mind throughout the state because we need candidates like you. Okay? And he'll be talking to you more about that and what the opportunities will be. So, Commissioner Curran.
Thank you, Chair. I move to appoint Harpreet Sangha as the permanent agent at store 1143 Springfield Gateway effective April 1st, 2023.
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Japon Porter.
Yes.
Commissioner Miletus,
Yes.
Chair Reval.
Yes. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Rules. Hello there.
Thank you. All right, good afternoon, Chair Reval and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Nicole Blase and I am the Rules Coordinator for the LLCC. I am here to present 2 rulemaking actions for your consideration today. The first item for today for initial action is artificially derived cannabinoids. And before I begin with that, I did want to make a note. I believe there may be a small typo on some of your meeting materials for the rule number for CBN today. I just want to clarify the correct rule number is 0251310. So for anyone who might make the suggested motion, it is 1310. I'll go ahead and begin. In 2021, the Oregon legislature passed House Bill 3000, giving the OLCC authority to regulate artificially derived cannabinoids in the adult use cannabis system. In December 2021, the Commission adopted OAR 845-025-1310 to implement that portion of House Bill 3000. Generally, OAR 845-025-1310 requires that artificially derived cannabinoids must either be determined to be generally recognized as safe or be the subject of a new dietary ingredient notification before they can be used in marijuana or hemp items sold in the adult use system. The rule also contains an exception allowing artificially derived cannabinol, CBN, to be used in products without meeting this requirement until July 1st of 2023. At this point, some CBN manufacturers have begun taking steps towards collecting the data and conducting the analysis needed to meet the general requirement for artificially derived cannabinoids, but none will be prepared to meet these requirements by July 1st, 2023. Staff will work with industry, community partners, and other interested parties to develop a rule package to extend the deadline for CBN manufacturers to meet these requirements subject to conditions. And I have a subject matter expert standing by if you have any further questions.
You do? Where?
On the screen, virtually.
So bring that individual in.
Okay, Stephen Crowley, if you're with us.
Question.
Thank you. Stephen Crowley, Hemp and Cannabinoid Compliance Coordinator for OLCC.
So I don't have any questions because we talked about this a bunch and this was, I think, while we had meetings with the industry and this was a not controversial, it was a precedent setting rule when we said it and it was the right thing to do back in, what was that, December 21? It sort of set the standard. A lot of people were not pleased with it, but what's been, I think, encouraging is that our stakeholders that were a little concerned with it have kind of come around to see the benefit of it, but they do need more time. They spent a lot of money and a lot of effort on this to get it there, and it really the success of or failure of the rule really hinges on them and their ability to do it. Because the issue is if they get it done, they get the generally recognized as safe, then Oregon sort of sets a precedent, which is going to be good for everybody. If they don't get it, then essentially the rest of the country is existing in this gray market. And so it's, there's a lot of dynamics to it, but I was pleased with the staff. I was really pleased with the industry for stepping up. And I was glad that, this was an issue that they probably would have taken to the legislature had we not addressed it in rule. So again, I think it's great that we are taking steps to address it and give them more time. And but I do at the same time, I don't just want to keep extending it. I think there's got to be check-ins and things like that, because this is a health and safety issue. So yeah, good work, everybody. That's my 2 cents on it.
Commissioner?
Chair?
You know the comments? Anything you'd like to add on the process or where we are today?
Stephen, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Chair of all commissioners, I think Commissioner Mlatus described it really well. This was a difficult issue. I mean, it's a national issue that a lot of states are grappling with. Some states are trying to grapple with whether to grapple with it, but and also meanwhile, the FDA is working through their processes where these sorts of products, where it's hemp derived, but semi-synthetic and being introduced in foods and supplements it's a novel issue for everybody. And these semi-synthetics in particular, the biggest issue is, one, for a lot of them, a lack of study of the substance itself being used in the kinds of doses that are being put into products, but also the byproducts from the manufacturing process. So when we're looking at the conditions for extending it, I think that's one of the pieces to look at is what control measures these manufacturers have in place to already be starting to look at those byproduct issues and whether they've started the process of getting to the point where they can comply with the health and safety requirements that are established in the rule.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone involved in this. It's important that we as a governmental agency protect consumers at all times. Sometimes when people get involved in the economic benefit, they forget that there is could be a cause and effect. And so I appreciate the efforts that you're doing in order to protect Oregonians and set an example for the rest of the country. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner? You?
Chair, I move to initiate rulemaking to amend OAR 845-025-1310 and to hold a rulemaking hearing at staff's discretion.
Commissioner Curran?
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty?
Yes.
Commissioner Dupont Porter?
Yeah.
Commissioner Melatus?
Yes.
Chair Raval?
Yes.
And just to note that
Hold open
Commissioner,
for Commissioner Floyd.
do you want to hold it open? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. I move to the next item. The second item for today is final action for the marijuana metric batch tagging. Currently, OLCC producers and medical growers reporting in metric are required to use single-use RFID tags on all individual plants 36 inches or higher. OLCC staff have heard concerns regarding the cost of these tags, both in terms of the material cost as well as the labor cost of affixing and managing individual tags. OLCC staff propose amendments to plant tagging requirements that would reduce the number of RFID tags required in order to balance accountability for reporting and compliance with lower cost for producer licensees and medical growers required to report in metric. And I do have TJ Sheehy here if you have any questions about this package.
Commissioner?
I mean, again, no, I wanted to push this to today. I wanted to kind of have it under a little less hectic meeting, but it's a really big lift that the industry had and our agency did over a lot of years to get to the point where we could kind of figure out what this was. Now, there's a whole lot of dynamics too, because there's aspects that the service provider needs to kind of work through of how we're going to do that. But we also had to hear from them. They've got some great local representation, and they're reaching out to industry, I know, which has been something they hadn't done as much in the past, getting feedback from the people that we're getting feedback from to a certain degree. So I'm glad we were able to accommodate everybody and get this passed today, because this has been a big issue for a lot of people. I mean, the metric, the individual plan tagging thing, when the law enforcement is saying we can do without, then we can do without. I mean, I think and TJ's been working on this thing for, that was always, TJ was the metric guy before I knew his name. So, yeah, I know he knows all about it, but yeah, hopefully I did as good explaining it as the last one. But you fill in any gaps that I left.
For the record, TJ Leahy, Director of Analytics and Research with the OLCC. I just want to emphasize one piece of this rule, which is this rule as being proposed would not become effective until January of 2024. And so for all the industry folks out there watching and listening, it's really important to know that through the end of this year, it's status quo in terms of tagging requirements in the system. We need that time to build out the system functionality, as Commissioner Melides referenced, and work with Metric on those changes, as well as any contractual changes that might be required by this. So until January 2024, the same tagging requirements are in place, and there's still the same expectations for licensees and reporting in Metric until this rule actually goes into effect.
So for all of those who are listening today, when does this rule take effect?
I'm glad you asked. January 1st, 2024.
And everything else stays the same right now until
January 1st, 2024.
Just thought I'd ask. Thank
And
you.
I'm sure we'll get questions tomorrow of what date is that?
I'm sure you will. All right, and commissioners, questions? Laura,
Chair,
can I have a motion?
I move to amend OAR 845-025-1015, 2070, 7520, 7570, and 7580 effective January 1st, 2024.
Commissioner Curran?
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty?
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Japon Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Melides?
Yes.
Chair Wall?
Yes.
And can we just go back to the last
Yes.
motion and add Commissioner Floyd?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Compliance.
Good afternoon, members of the commission and Chair Legault. For the record, my name is Andrea Lee, and I'm a case presenter with the Administrative Hearings Division. I'm presenting 3 alcohol settlement agreement for your ratification, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Commission.
These are all either service permits or minors, right? Serving the minors. Okay.
Questions?
I have no questions.
No,
All right,
pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Compliance this month.
Chair,
please.
I move to ratify the 3 stipulated settlement agreements as proposed by staff.
Commissioner Curran?
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty?
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Japon Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Melides?
Yes.
Chair Wall?
Yes. Thank you. Who will be handling the administration?
I think the next time, Stacy, you want me to start?
Yes, I'm sorry I didn't anticipate
doing anything.
But to the next item on the agenda, Mr. Chair. One of the things that the commission has come to me and staff and just saying really a need for education on what it means to be a public body, what it means to be a public official, rights and responsibilities and privileges that go along with that. So we wanted to have an opportunity to see what type of trainings you wanted to have me develop with help from staff and council. And so I think that's really the goal of this agenda item, to see what's on your mind and see what you'd like us to develop from the upcoming meetings. Stacey, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, so I have in my mind a particular way that this could go, but that's just my experience, and you all probably have some different things going on. But it's very common for a commission to have a series of trainings, not only about your legal duties and responsibilities, but also just generally about what it is that the agency that you oversee does. And this is something that the commission did, I think like 2016. It's been a long time. And at that time, there were a series of work sessions that happened after your regularly scheduled meeting, and you'd have members of your staff present to you, for example, contested case hearing 101. What happens from the point that a regulatory specialist walks into a bar, pulls a violation up into Melanie's department, and just walking you through that entire system up into the time that you have somebody sitting right here who presents their oral argument to you on their exceptions. There's that, there's the retail agents and what they do. So basically just the substance of what the agency does. And so you can use, this is a good opportunity for you to develop with staff a list of training sessions, and they could go out as long as a year. I mean, you meet every, you meet once a month, you can meet after your work sessions, but it's basically just OLCC University developed by you all. And then I can come in from DOJ, or you might have other DOJ attorneys who can come in and do some of the more legal aspects. So we can talk about, for example, public meetings, public records is a good example. You might even want to have somebody come in from DOJ who does your procurement and your contracts. I don't actually review that stuff. So maybe you'd like to talk about that. What happens when a public agency goes out and leases land, or they construct a building? You can have another one even on legislation. So that it's really up to you. And you could either, we could use this as a chance to just brainstorm, and we can take notes and try to put together a syllabus for you. And then maybe continue this into the next meeting where you think a little more about what it is that you want to learn or not learn. So that's basically how I have seen it done, not just with this commission, but with other boards and agencies.
Stacey will be allowed to give you a call or text you or email you individually on things we'd like to see.
Sure, I would recommend that working with Craig. And then Craig can talk to me about when we need to bring DOJ in to help with some of the legal aspects.
So Senator Craig.
Senator Craig, send it to Craig, yes.
Not Senator.
I thought you gave me a promotion.
No, not that easy.
No, that's true. That's true.
I think the syllabus, that's what I was going to ask before you said that, what would be really ideal, where you have also like the outline bullet forms. I liked what you did there with the criteria for selection, that sort of thing. Maybe you can have language that speaks to acronyms that are usable daily.
Okay.
And then explain those words from there as it relates to the commission. I think that it would be both empowering and comforting to have a better command of the daily, monthly meetings. Daily, I mean like you're here today, but it occurs monthly. And when you go down the list of items, what does that mean and how do you address that? You know, like I learned a lot through inference you know, and it makes sense in retrospect, but it would be helpful knowing what to expect once you get in and how things run. Like a flow chart, you go here, you go there, this is what's gonna occur, and these are your options, or this is your obligation.
We have that. I mean, I'm just, maybe I got it different, but we had a book that I got when I came, and I knew a lot of it coming in, but I think we've got those materials available. And I think, I think it was probably not 16, because I remember probably more like 2018, because I remember being in those trainings when we had a few of them. Yeah, I mean, I think they'd be good as a refresher, because it's a very complex agency, and there's a lot of moving pieces to it. And even when you learn it on a piece of paper, it still can be challenging. The one piece that I did want to kind of bring up that I think is pertinent to everything we just went through. You know, there's responsibilities that, and it says it in statute, certain responsibilities are delegated to executive director and to staff. Now, like when some of the news broke on some of the stuff, and I don't, if I'm getting too far off anything, you stop me really quickly. But my belief is that, you know, distribution staff handles the distribution of spirits. You know, when I first got here, first year I was here, we worked on the lottery program to try to mitigate some of those issues. Like, we earnestly felt, at least from my experience, that we were taking a lot of steps to mitigate some of the issues that came up. It might be good to understand what responsibilities have been delegated, and maybe just take a look at that, like as a quasi audit of those, just so we are aware, because I want to be sure that we're really living up to what we're supposed to be doing, like as oversight of the agency. And I think in Craig's background as a inspector, I think we've got a great watchdog here who can kind of help us through that. But I do think that I just want to be sure we're doing everything to ensure the public trust and ensure that the issues that came up just don't ever happen again. Or we are looking out for them as best as possible. So that'd be my only thought. I know what I know, but I don't know what I don't know. This is the only thing. So that would be my addition.
So I'm going to encourage each of you to think about what you would like to see in the future. Get that to Craig, and Craig can take a look at that situation, and then get that to Stacy and other DOJ officials that we see, so we can move forward down the road. Yes.
And just as a suggestion, because it's hard to ask what you don't know, that's how I feel for me. So I think that Laura provided a list or some of the old trainings that were done. So you could start from there and use that as a basis of what you want to learn, and then build up from that. So at least you're not just taking stabs in the dark. So for example, I think there was one on rulemaking and how that happens. There's the one, the contested case one that I was talking about. You could do bottle bill. That would be a good one. I can, you know, and I can work with Craig and with Nathan and maybe develop, we can help, I can try to help you put together a draft syllabus that they can then present to you at the next commission, and you can say yes or no, and just check through stuff and then set up the schedule.
Right.
Oh, and in addition to that, if you come up with other stuff, then send it to Craig or Nathan. And you are always welcome to contact me, but really, I think that these guys are your first information contact before coming to me on this issue.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I think that Commissioner Melita, it's on my mind. You know, this is what we want to start with, and so yeah, you can those. So let's think of it as a draft syllabus, topics to be created by you, and then I can work on them with staff, and we can make sure that we're responsive to your needs and we're defining, that oversight that I have and that you have, and we're making sure that, like you said, you feel empowered. You feel empowered in your role, and we can do it transparently. And I think that'll be a good way to move forward. So thank you.
I really
So-
like the tone of everything.
Pursuant to RS 192.6602H, the commission will now go into executive session to consult with the council concerning the commission's legal rights and duties with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. Once we've done that, we will reconvene.
Chair?
Good afternoon. We have reconvened from the executive session. Commissioner Curran?
Chair, I move to direct DOJ to offer a settlement in the Garden Path litigation in the terms discussed in executive session.
Laura?
Commissioner Kern,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Javon Porter.
Yes.
Commissioner Miletus,
Yes.
Chair Raval.
Yes. If there is no other business, we are adjourned.
Thank you.